want to thank everybody who's been with me, my Xbox clan.
When Kobe's going back to play Madison Square Garden, and he's like, hey, hook me up with dinner with Heath Ledger.
Like Russell Westbrook, that was a great feat the other day. I couldn't even tweet it out.
It's Coach Frank Vogel here, full of enthusiasm and positive energy.
Ask me what I like to play with Kevin Durant. Ask me about Kyrie Irving, Giannis. Ask me about Embiid, Ben Simmons. Go ahead, all of them.
There was a time when the Israelites were wandering in the desert and all of a sudden bread came down from heaven. That's kind of what today feels like to have KCP join.
We're back.
Yo.
Bulls versus Blazers. We took last week's Patreon episode off. We just kind of decided that given everything that shook out kind of the second half of last week, we figured, we were maybe not the people that everybody really was clamoring to hear from while all the protests and the strike and stuff were going on. So we just didn't, we didn't do a Patreon episode last week. So, apologies for that for our Patreon subscribers. But we're back now. I'm Sean Highkin. With me, as always, Erik Gundersen.
Yo, again, once again. Hey, you're right. I mean, there wasn't a lot for us to say. I mean, let's be real. Like, I mean, we can say, that we're like, team ally over here.
Yeah.
But like, we're just talking at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we didn't need to add our voice to the chorus of voices that were already saying very important things.
It's the same thing as when all these protests first started in May with the George Floyd killing. We kind of just, figured we should probably both just like take a step back. And we weren't doing this podcast at the time, but we were doing our Survivor's Remorse podcast at that point, which, there were definitely like, we just felt like, okay, at that point, it was just like, we didn't record that for like a couple weeks after that. So we just.
Yeah, because it was just not the appropriate. And like, there was also like an episode like in there that was about police brutality.
Yeah.
That we like, and was just like, maybe we should just not as two whites.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, and obviously we've both kind of been covering this story. Like you've written about it for the LeBron Wire. I wrote a column about it on Bleacher Report the night that it happened, and it's tough because like you want to get it right, but you also have to know that you want to like rise up to the moment and say, okay, I'm going to write a column that adds something to the conversation. But you also have to realize that like, as a white guy, it's not really my place to be talking about how these guys should or should not protest or tell them what to do or count their money or say, oh, they shouldn't walk out because they're going to risk this money, or they should walk out. We don't know guys' financial situations, or project what I would maybe want them to do onto it. It just never felt like the appropriate way to go about it.
Yeah, and now that we actually know, like, we have like some time, like, that's the other great thing too, is that like, whenever we are doing this podcast, and it's like our Patreon fam obviously understands, like, we are only going to do this podcast when we think it's appropriate, and it's like we actually think we have something to add to the conversation. And now that we actually know what happened, like, we have all the stories from the people on the ground, the people that were doing the reporting, the people that were there, that talked to the Bucks, that talked to the Raptors and the Celtics. Like, we know, like, now, like, a much more clear picture, and we didn't have to do, like, a knee-jerk reaction pod. You know what I mean? Because we were just, like, we're like, we are trying to do this, but, like, we're not, we're not being driven by something, a machine, if you will. And so it's like, this is an incredible time in the NBA. Like, this has not happened since 1964, when there was the All-Star game boycott that Oscar Robertson and Bill Russell led. And so the fact that the Bucks made this choice and did what they did, regardless of what the following repercussions were, was a momentous moment in NBA history. And the fact that they paused the playoffs is something that, like, I think we needed some time to just, like, really realize what had just happened.
And I think, too, it just sort of drove home how surface level a lot of the social justice stuff that the NBA was already doing was. Because, I mean, if you'll remember, and this is a point that I made in my column on Bleacher Report, but if you'll remember, back in, like, early to mid-June, when the league and the players union were negotiating all the different things that were going to go into this restart in this Orlando bubble, and if they're really going to do it, that was, like, the immediate 2 or 3 weeks after the George Floyd protests started. And it was starting to feel at that moment. Because remember, like,
was Kyrie and
not even before that, but like remember, they burned down the police precinct in Minneapolis, and then the Minneapolis City Council actually voted to defund the police, and then a bunch of different cities, including here in Portland, they voted to remove police officers from schools. Like, it actually felt at that time like there was some momentum towards some actual real change on these issues happening. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, it kind of seemed like a reasonable thing to say, okay, you know, we can put Black Lives Matter on the court, we can put the slogans on the jerseys, the owners will commit to give some money to some black-owned businesses or to these different economic empowerment funds, and then cool, like that's what we'll do. And so they go down there, and they've been, and to the players' credit, they've been doing everything they can since the bubble started to keep the focus on the message. Like, they've all been, like, there was a couple of guys, Jeremy Grant on Denver and Tobias Harris, or two guys that come to mind, who basically have at different points sat down on these Zoom calls and been like, look, I don't want to answer any basketball questions today. I'm only going to talk about Breonna Taylor, or I'm only going to talk about, not even just players either. Like, Greg Popovich has, spent some time talking about redlining during this whole thing. Doc Rivers obviously had that thing. But so they're using all of these things the way that they're supposed to be doing them, in terms of, like, using their platforms and having the messages on the jerseys. And it seems like all that stuff is going well. And then another video of a black man getting shot by the police for no reason comes out with Jacob Blake last weekend. And these players are like, look, we've been doing all this stuff and trying to use our platform, quote unquote, which is what they told us we needed to be doing. And this stuff is still happening. So, like, what are we even really doing here?
No, and I think in a way, Adam Silver's rhetoric, and also I think the rhetoric of the leadership of the players' union has, and both, Chris Paul, LeBron, Michelle Roberts,
Andre Iguodala,
Udonis Haslem, all these guys, they have talked about the platform and, like, really talked about it a lot and how much that matters. And then I think we saw the generation gap in the league between the older guard and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart and Fred VanVleet. And you saw these, and even George Hill's not that young, but, like, he's not in that echelon of guys. And it's like, there was definitely a shift there. And it was like, you hear Jaylen Brown come out and say, like, I don't think the owners are going to do anything really. I'm not holding my breath. And then you also hear, like, the juxtaposition of, like, the guys that are high up in the players union talking about how important the platform is. And I think also, like, the other reports about what Jaylen Brown said also have merit, though, that, like, most of the guys in the league, if they were going to walk out, probably were not going to be out in the streets, probably were not going to be organizing and doing stuff outside of the bubble. And, like, I think there's multiple ways and multiple, like, things that are happening here. It's not just like, if you're about the cause, you are a fraud if you decide to play.
Well, this kind of just goes back, in my mind, to what the conversation was back in June when they were talking about, and there were certain guys who were saying, we don't even know if we should be playing, we should be focusing on this stuff. I mean, you have to keep in mind, and this is back at that time, the two guys who were really leading the charge on, hey, maybe it's not a good idea to play, were Kyrie Irving and Dwight Howard, who are both guys that have had multiple max contracts in their careers and made hundreds of millions of dollars at this point in their careers. So if the season had gotten canceled at that point, those guys would have been okay, whereas you saw a lot more of the rank-and-file guys coming out and saying, hey, maybe we should be using our platform down in Orlando to bring people together and get the word out about the message. And
right,
like,
yeah.
Like, you're kind of starting to see the same thing. Like I think there was, like, a bunch of different agendas kind of going against each other, which is kind of a thing that just happens when you get a lot of people in the room, especially in an emotionally charged environment like this. You've got
it's like 200, so there's like 450 guys in the players union,
yeah,
all in the whole league, and there's like 12 teams left, so it's like 200 guys.
Sure. So you have the
That's
different
a lot
agendas
of different
like
agendas.
the players union leadership, the LeBron, Chris Paul, Iguodala, like that whole contingent. They've spent all of this time, basically since Adam took over as commissioner and then Michelle Roberts came in as their executive director. They've spent all this time basically building this quote-unquote partnership with the league in terms of they haven't had a lockout. They've seemed like they've just kind of worked together on stuff. And so all of these, like the LeBron and Andre Iguodala type of guys, and Chris Paul, who's the president of the Players Union, they were all kind of saying, hey, we need to not just completely torpedo the season that everybody made so many sacrifices to do, because otherwise, the next labor battle is going to be ugly, and, it's going to end badly for the Players Union. And then some of the younger guys like Jaylen Brown and Fred VanVleet were just like, fuck that. We need to actually do something and make a statement and say what we want to get out there, what we want to get out there about this stuff, and actually hold the owners to account for this stuff. And then obviously LeBron, there's the other factor of it is that LeBron tells Joe Varden of The Athletic that it was he and only he that came up with this plan. And it's just a whole lot of just like different posturing. And like, I'll just say this. I never thought for a second that LeBron was actually going to walk out and end the season. Like that just, the night that all got reported, that the Lakers and the Clippers were the two teams that were really, they were the two that voted to cancel the season. And like, you're telling me the two likeliest finals MVPs are the two guys who are trying to shut down like, that was clearly just posturing. Because basically, like, LeBron knows that he's the only player whose opinion matters to the owners. And so if he put out there, hey, I'm willing to walk away, that might make them be more willing to give them whatever they ended up giving them, whether that's, turning the arenas into voting booths or whatever else.
Okay, well, we're going to open our third eye for a second.
Okay.
Okay. So, like...
This is what we do on this podcast. We open
the third eye. This is what we do. We're going to open the third eye. Okay, so LeBron's more than a vote thing already had this whole thing, and they had Lloyd Pierce. They had a lot of different people across sports with this more than a vote thing, with this arena thing in mind. So it's already be an actionable, sellable element. And, like, it's easy for him to take credit for that, even if it wasn't, like, his choice to do the thing. And the other thing that we have to open our third eye about is that LeBron was clearly pissed that the Bucks did this and didn't tell him.
Yeah.
Like he was upset that they did this and did not tell him. And the whole thing about him having a plan and creating a plan, it's like, it's not... Like, okay, it's not that. Like the plan was already there. Like, I'm sure, honestly, the NBA probably was already working on this behind the scenes, and then they're like, okay, well, we got to push this out now. And realistically, like,
see, I don't know if I agree with you about that. I don't know if they had already agreed on this whole thing of that all the owners were going to be turning the arenas into. I think that was like the owners were scared that the players were actually going to cancel the season.
Well, I mean, again, I do think LeBron deserves some credit for that, because that was an actionable thing that he had, that more than a vote has worked on.
Yeah.
And like, I will give him credit for that, but it's also like very easy for him to take credit for that. And I also think he was a little bit taken aback. And I think Woj reported this, that people were mad at the Bucks. Players, unnamed. Multiple players were upset with the Bucks for what they did, and Jaylen Brown told them, like, hey, if you're really about this, like, we're just gonna be in solidarity with them and understand where they're coming from, which was just being upset and distraught, and also a little depressed, and have been stuck in this bubble that has been killing their mental health. Like, on top of everything else, like, all that's just a toxic cocktail of shit. And and Jaylen Brown told, I think from what my reading of it is, Jaylen Brown told LeBron to shut the fuck up and understand it. And I think LeBron got pissed and stormed out of the meeting and said, "We're out." Because there was no word about the Celtics saying that we're not going to play.
I think LeBron is having a hard time coming to grips with the fact that he is still the most famous player in the NBA, and he is still the one player in the NBA that the owners actually listen to, and he's the one guy that has the kind of, like, LeBron is the second most powerful person in the NBA besides Adam Silver. even still at this point.
Yeah.
But I think it's hard for LeBron right now. Maybe he will when he gets a little bit older, but he has not yet come to grips with the fact that he isn't really somebody that the younger generation looks at like that anymore. Like, it was, like when Kevin Durant was first coming up, and like that generation of guys that are like right after LeBron. LeBron was the guy, and now like LeBron at this point, like there are guys in the league who are like almost half of LeBron's age, like in terms of like the age gap. We're gonna get in a couple of years to where, like we're already talking about like LeBron's kid might be in the league in like 3 years. Like we're already at that point. Like LeBron is old enough at this point that these 19, 20-year-olds, like obviously they respect LeBron as a player, but they're not looking at LeBron as like, oh, this is one of my peers, this is somebody that I'm working with. They see him as part of the establishment.
Yeah, he's not part of, like, they don't see him as like a guy that's living their everyday life. Like, it's like he has, obviously, like, I mean, I run a blog exclusively about him. Like, there are so many levels of this media that are totally catered to LeBron James. And so there's no way you can not feel that way if you're, and also I think too, like, at least for someone like Jaylen Brown, like, he has at least like challenged him, and he's like he's gone toe to toe with him, even though he's lost. Like, I think there's like a respect factor there that, like, at least playing, I think, gives you a little bit. And I mean, the fact that they came back so quickly with a plan to go to play again also does not make me feel like it was like that drastic of a situation that they would not play.
I think the owners still just realize, like, we need to agree to this voting stuff. We need to agree to some of these other concessions just for the optics standpoint. Because, I mean, and I've said this before, like, I don't think that this is, like, out of the NBA being as woke as they have, marketed themselves as being. And certainly a lot of the owners, whether it's the Magic, which are literally owned by the DeVos family, or Josh Harris, the owner of the Sixers, who has done business with Jared Kushner before, or Tillman Fertitta, who's a huge Trump supporter. Like, a lot of these owners do not agree with this, what the players are talking about politically and socially and what they want. But the one thing that I think separates Adam Silver from other commissioners is that he cares about the optics, and he cares about what people think about him. And, like, he likes being thought of as the progressive NBA, the progressive sports commissioner, and the one that cares about his players, and the one that's, like, if this happened in the NFL would have just been like, okay, fine, fuck you guys, don't play then. We'll just get other people. Like, or like baseball would have just, like, tried to use it to squeeze the players for more money. Adam Silver, I think, is savvy enough politically that he knows that he can't alienate his players like that, because the players are such big stars on social media and the players have these platforms, that he's not going to win that PR battle the way that, like, the NFL could win that PR battle against their players, or baseball could, because their fan bases are different from the NBA's. I think Adam was smart enough to just be able to kind of tell the owners, look, we're going to have to rip up the CBA anyway because we've all lost so much money on the pandemic, and we're going to have to redo it, but, like, let's just, like, give them whatever we need to give them to get them to agree to play right now in this moment, so that we can at least get through the bubble and then figure out the future later. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think that Silver is incredibly savvy at understanding the media, the quote unquote conversation. Like, he is really good at just figuring out a way to win the news cycle. And like he's really good at that, and he really cares about it, because, I mean, that shines through, and especially with the NBA's perception at large. And so, I mean, I definitely think that him and LeBron and Chris Paul. I mean, Chris Paul is personal friends with Bob Iger. Yeah, like this is like clearly a thing where it's like all parties involved at the leadership level of the union and the leadership level of these corporations have a pact. You know what I mean? Like, they all are, like, in it together, and that's why the last CBA in 2017 got done quietly behind the scenes without there being a lockout, because this is like right after they had signed that new TV contract where so much more money came in, and and Adam Silver and Michelle Roberts behind the scenes were basically just like, look, we're all making so much money, let's all just kind of keep this going and not really
Don't rock the boat.
Right, don't rock the boat. Now, obviously, they're going to have to go back and redo some things now because the pandemic has just changed so much for everybody. But I think there was from this, and you kind of saw it in the sense that, what did LeBron and Chris Paul do? They went and got Obama on the phone as like the guy who is gonna. I mean, and that like even though Obama is like a respected figure among these guys, and he's the first black president, all these things. Obama is not going to be just because
he doesn't rock the boat.
He doesn't rock the boat either. He's very much he's gotten where he is by playing the game and playing within what the rules are. So he's going to tell them, hey, you guys should keep playing. He's not like Obama is not who you go to if you want him to tell you go walk out, torpedo the season and just take the risk. Obama's not going to be the one to tell you to do that. He's going to tell you guys, hey, keep playing, get them to turn these arenas into voting places and go from there. Like that
don't boo, vote. I mean, he said it 4 years ago.
Yeah,
which it didn't work out very well. So
did you see that?
I feel like I got to be hedging my bets now.
Did you see that? That Joe Biden is they're putting Biden-Harris signs in Animal Crossing.
I did
see that.
It's
like the Pokemon Go to the polls thing all over again.
Yeah, it's a socially distanced Pokemon Go to the polls.
Yeah.
Yeah, COVID mon go to the polls. I mean, should we do a vibe check?
We should probably, we talked about this. I mean, you guys, obviously, anybody who listens to us or follows us know, we're totally on board with the cause that the players are pushing for. And, if they had decided to actually walk out and end the season, like, we would have been on board with that. And we're on board with them still playing. Like, we're totally with them. But, there has been actual basketball since then, so we should probably do, the vibe check.
Well, I mean, there's also non-basketball related things that could be also related to the vibe check. I mean, I feel
what are you talking about?
I mean, I'm just like general vibes. Like
how are your
vibes?
The
Boston. My vibes are good. I'm more thinking about like the Boston Celtics, like teaching Taco Fall how to swim. Like,
I didn't see this. What is this?
Oh, dude, Enes Kanter and Jaylen Brown were teaching Taco Fall how to swim, and they were holding up his torso while he would kick his feet, and they were trying to give him like legit swim lessons.
Okay,
and so like that is an incredible vibe to me. Like guys being dudes teaching each other how to swim. Like, that's cool. So, I mean, I guess I already started it. The Celtics vibes, up 2-0 in the series, teaching Taco how to swim, Jaylen Brown telling LeBron, hey, why don't you relax, buddy? Like, Marcus Smart being a god, and like, just energy guy. Kemba Walker literally in like maybe the perfect role that he's ever had in the NBA. And then Jason Tatum being the best player, maybe the best player in the East right now. I'm ready to start a dialogue. Like at least in the playoffs, like he is so fucking good. And I don't he has like, he's grown a couple inches. It is just like, he's so good. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but he is.
And he's a young 19. That's the part that nobody talks about.
Jesus Christ. I just want to talk about how good he is instead of how young he is.
So, I'm going to say this. This is an exclusive Bulls vs. Blazers revelation. This goes against everything that I stand for spiritually, philosophically. You were talking last time we recorded about how you might be trying to go back to your old well of picking the Celtics to win the title.
Yes.
And I'm here to say, I might be with you. I'm not proud of it. I don't like to say this, but I think the Celtics have looked the best. I mean, they kicked Philly's ass. Like, that was like that series was never
Toronto was demolishing people until these last two games.
And I mean, this game, I think Toronto clearly had a chance to win this game. The first one, I was even willing to just kind of write off and say, okay, look, Toronto came out flat, like they'll be fine. And they were more competitive in this game. I think this series is going 6 or 7, but I kind of feel like, and then especially like, I think that the Celtics are more talented than Miami. And I certainly don't feel super confident in the Bucks after watching that game yesterday. So I'm kind of just I'm not fully there, but I'm willing to be swayed by the dialogue when it comes to the Celtics.
Yeah, and here's a difference between the Celtics' best players and maybe everybody else's best players. Like, their three best guys, Tatum, Brown, and Kemba, and I think to a smaller degree, Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
They can all get the ball and do their own thing without having someone set them up. And Giannis, for as great as he is with the ball in his hands, kind of plays like a big. And Anthony Davis is a big. And the fact that you have four guys at the very least, and if you throw Hayward in there, if he somehow gets healthy, like, great. But, like, you got three guys at the very least in Kemba, Jalen, and Jason Tatum that, like, they all can take the ball and they can put the ball in their hands and they can take the game over.
I completely forgot about Gordon Hayward being out of the bubble. Like, I actually would be really interested to know, like, if Gordon Hayward was in the bubble over the last week, like, I wonder how he would have felt about, like, everything going on. Would he have been one of the guys, like, I don't know, guys, maybe we should play. Like, I think we could really use our platforms by playing. Like, I don't know.
To, pitch for education reform.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know, guys. It might, like, logistically, it might be kind of hard for them to make all their arenas polling places. I don't know. I'm just saying, we gotta, it would have literally been like Gordon Hayward would have been the Chris Mannix. Like, I don't know what more like these owners can do. Like, that would have kind of been how he was getting down.
Yeah, no, I just think, like, okay, if they get Hayward back, that's gonna help them.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, I just think that, like, those three guys, and then also, like, everybody else on their team is healthy. Like, a couple of years ago when they went to the seventh game against the Cavs without Kyrie, without Hayward, they didn't have Daniel Tice. I mean, they were playing like they didn't really have, and Al Horford was basically their only big man. And, like, I just feel like they're healthy right now. They have the experience. They've been in these situations time and again. Like, they are a young team, but this is a young team that has experience. And I've had some people talk to me about it. Like, well, I think the Celtics are a year away. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know if next year is going to be any better. I mean, you got Brooklyn coming in. Washington's going to be healthy.
I don't know if Washington's really going to be a threat to Boston.
But I'm just saying, like, at least they're going to be healthy.
Sure.
Like, and you've got, and then also, I mean, of course, not in addition to Washington, and Brooklyn, I'm Philadelphia, of course. Like, they're going to get a new coach.
What they do.
They're going to get a new coach. They're going to get a new coach, and like that, I mean, it could be like the Milwaukee situation all over again, where they get a coach that is just a little bit better and gets more out of them and challenges them a little bit more than, their previous coach did, which, Jason Kidd or Joe Prunty before the Budenholzer era. Obviously, Bud is, I think we should do a Milwaukee vibe check at this point.
I'm still not that worried about Milwaukee.
He's got playing Kyle Korver, like, big minutes, especially, like, early in that fourth quarter when they're like, okay, Korver, you're going to guard Tyler Herro. Like, and Herro is, like, he's, like, 13 years younger than Kyle Korver.
And pretty athletic.
Yeah, and has a good handle, and he's a good shooter. Like, that's a matchup that the Heat are going to take every time. Like, Duncan Robinson didn't do shit, and they still won that game. Like, obviously, Milwaukee is with Giannis, they're clearly the favorite. But
Giannis was bad in that game, though.
Yeah, bro. Like, Middleton was the star.
Yeah, I still think
he took 12 shots.
I still think Milwaukee's going to be fine. I'm not really worried. I still think they're going to win the series. Do I think they can beat Boston or Toronto in this next round? I'm not sure, but I still think they're going to get out of the series.
I picked Bucks in 6.
That's kind of still where I'm at.
The fact that they didn't have to put Bam on Giannis for most of the game, the fact that Dragic was able to get to the rack basically at will, and then Jimmy was just like, I mean, I think that's the most, Jimmy hitting that many jump shots is maybe the least sustainable part of that whole thing.
Yeah, that's why I think that Milwaukee's going to end up being fine. I don't think Jimmy's going to score 40 points every game. So we did the Toronto, like Toronto, where I don't know. I still think Toronto's going to make the series competitive, but
I just don't know if they have a lot of answers to what the questions that the Celtics are asking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they went to Siakam again late in the game, and it's like Siakam's spin move isn't there, and there's nothing else. And like Van Vliet, like really can't get a clean look the way he was able to against the Magic, or against the Nets, excuse me. And Gasol, I think in a series with this much athleticism, he's just not as able to make the impact on the game that he normally would, because the Celtics are always like I said this a couple in the bubble game, in the seeding games when Toronto ran the Lakers out of the gym, that I thought that the Raptors were playing at a higher speed. The Celtics are playing at a higher speed than the Raptors are now. And like if the Raptors don't have that advantage, they're just good instead of a championship team.
Toronto was my pick to win the title going into the bubble, and I'm getting worried about it. I don't think the vibes are what they were a week ago. As much as it's great that Fred VanVleet got his kids back, like the kids are in the bubble now. That was a cute video, but we thought maybe that was going to be the new dad energy part 2. But yeah, I'm worried about the Raptors, and I say that as the biggest Raptors booster that there is, at least for this year.
Oh, dude, like I said this before the series last week when we did our last free pod. I was like, I bet on the Raptors in February to win the championship because I loved what they were doing. But the Celtics they've reached a level of team synergy right now that is just and it's like Cantor hasn't played a second in this series, and it's like they just know exactly who they are. They plug their guys into the exact right places, and they're in harmony right now. Like they are just in a zone, and it's nothing really against the Raptors. It's just the Celtics have it right now.
Is Boston the team of destiny?
I mean, I think there's a very good chance that the team. I mean, the team of Bill Russell. I mean, the last guy that led the walkouts.
Well, he led the last 2 walkouts because there was the '64 All-Star game, which they didn't actually boycott. They just almost did. And then there was, I don't know if you've read about this in the last week, but there was and I had read about this years ago, but I'd kind of forgotten about it until this week. But there was an exhibition game in Lexington, Kentucky, that the Celtics were playing in 1961. Mm-hmm. That Bill Russell and all of his black teammates basically decided not to play in because they were still sitting at having to eat at segregated restaurants.
Yeah, wow. I have heard that before, but I did not read about it recently. But wow.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the Celtics. Yeah, the Celtics were
a lot of their fans hate to see it, but
yeah, a lot of their fans hate to see it, but they are a high key activist franchise in the NBA. I mean, Red Auerbach was the first guy to want to integrate and
well, was he doing that as out of the goodness of his heart, or was he doing it as a competitive advantage?
I don't know, but who knows? I'm just saying.
Yeah,
we're starting a dialogue about the Celtics.
We're just starting a dialogue. That's all. And okay, Miami's vibes are great. They're chilling. They're in a good spot. Jimmy's awesome. Like you said, Duncan Robinson didn't really do anything in that game. They still won. The Heat are fine. I could see the Heat coming out of the East. I wouldn't pick them, but I could see it. We should shout out to some families of teams in the West or the East rather that are gone.
Oh yeah.
We should shout out to Nate McMillan's family because that was
outrageous. Bro, what in the world was that?
I do not get it.
Bro, okay, and the whole thing is like they're going to get Mike D'Antoni, which, okay, Mike D'Antoni is a great coach.
They're not going to be able to pay him, though.
They're not going to, well, maybe they're not going to be able to pay him, but either way, it's like, what is Mike D'Antoni going to do? Like, turn Malcolm Brogdon and Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner into, like, the 07 Suns? No. Like, I don't know what else Nate McMillan could have done to let the offense obviously they took a lot of mid-range shots, but they also took a lot of threes, and it wasn't like they were like, you know, in the Stone Ages of NBA offensive philosophy. And they just got rolled by Boston last year without Bogdanović or without Oladipo, and Bogdanović was basically their only good player. And then this year they got rolled by the Heat, who might win the East. So it's like, and they took the Cavs to 7 the year before.
Yeah, and I also thought that Kevin Pritchard or whoever wrote that press release kind of did him dirty by putting that putting his playoff record in the press release. Like the 3-16, it's like you have to, first of all, they almost won that series against Cleveland, but also like most of those games against the against Boston, like, were that wasn't like a blowout series. Like,
no, most of those games were close. Yeah, like, no, I mean, that
was just like it reminded me of, you know, back when the Bulls fired Tom Thibodeau and they put out that press release where they said, even though we had some success with him, we still felt like it was, and it's like, okay, he was like the most successful coach that you'd had since Phil Jackson. You don't need to say he had some success. Like, I felt like putting Nate's playoff record in there was kind of in the same vein. Like, they really didn't need to kick him on his way out.
No, especially after all he gave. And, like, okay, I will give them this, like, giving him the contract extension and a full year's salary no matter what happened was nice of them. But still, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you give this guy hey, you got us here, you got us in the 4th seed, 45 wins, and we know that you didn't have a full deck, and we're going to reward you, and then they just pull the share out from under him just to chase the Mike D'Antoni dragon. And it's like, I mean, I just, like, D'Antoni is a good coach. I mean, he's a great coach. But, like, McMillan, I don't know what else McMillan could have done to justify keeping his job other than what he did.
And I also want to say that it is kind of a weird look that the same day as all the players walk out over the Jacob Blake situation, one of the only handful of black coaches in the league who's had done a very good job and just kind of got dealt a bad hand gets fired kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, and it's insane. It, like, I mean, no, I don't feel like
there are white coaches who have accomplished a lot less than Nate McMillan and have a lot more job security.
Yeah, exactly. Competent coaches, like, it's just not that easy. Also, to, like, consistently have a team that performs the way that, to perform above average, to win at an above average level, like, that shit's hard. And like, the fact that it's just like, all right, well, we're going to get rid of Nate McMillan because we feel like it, and we feel like we can maybe get Mike D'Antoni, when they were one of the most prepared teams in the league. They were disciplined. They were good at defense. They had a pretty good offense despite not having a ton of amazing offensive personnel. I just don't understand what they could have done, what he could have done. And it reminds me a little bit of when the Pelicans fired Monty Williams a couple of years ago. Because, and, you know, same coaching tree, Nate and, you know, Monty was an assistant, and also both of them are black. Yeah. So it's very easy to see, like, hey, they're going to pull the short leash. Like, when Monty got fired by the Pelicans, they were playing Dante Cunningham at small forward because that was all they had. And they still made the fucking playoffs. And it was like, what are you guys doing? And now, of course, everyone sees how great Monty is after this last Suns run. And it's like, I think there's another, like, if I'm, you know, a team that's looking for another coach, like, I would love to hire Nate McMillan as my head coach. because
hell
he's
yeah.
going to whip your team into shape and whip them into respectability. He's going to get them to be prepared. He's going to get them to play hard, and he's going to get them to win games. And it's like,
the same stuff that people said about, and I want to make it clear that I think this was a good hire for the Knicks, but all the same stuff that people said about Tom Thibodeau is also true of Nate McMillan, and he doesn't have the same reputation and stature that Tom does.
No, and it's like, I think the color of the skin definitely is a factor.
I don't think it's the only thing, but I think it's a part of it.
It's a factor. He's not as loud on the sidelines. He's not as, like, he doesn't draw, like with the yelling of the coverages and stuff, like, and he's also, like, very, like, I mean, I think him and Tibbs share this, like, when they're in the media, they're very, like, you know, straightforward, getting down to business. That, you know, they're not there to spend a lot of time talking about things, but I just don't understand. Like, I mean, Brad Stevens said it, like, after he got fired. He was like, I don't know how you can watch NBA basketball around the league the way it is and look at Nate McMillan and be like, and the Pacers, and say, like, well, they're not coached well enough.
Well, and here's the other part of it. The line they're pushing now is, you know, they really want Mike D'Antoni. That's the guy that they think is going to be. And it does seem like no matter what happens in Game 7 tomorrow, like, I do not think that Mike D'Antoni is going to be back in Houston. And his contract, they didn't give him an extension. Like, he's been on a lame duck contract the whole year. Like, he's going to be gone. But Mike D'Antoni is not going to take, like, less than probably $5, $6, $7 million a year, given his stature and his reputation and what he's already done before. Like, he's gonna command probably one of the highest coaching salaries in the league. And Indy is just not a, you know, Herb Simon is not like, they're not like Robert Sarver level cheap, but it's not like this, you know, they're not a team that, like, notoriously spends on coaches.
What do you think about the theory that Herb Simon signed Nate McMillan to the contract and then fired him to be like, I'm not broke?
That's an interesting theory.
Because I feel like that theory has merit. Because there was a lot of people talking about how Herb Simon was getting hit by the COVID. And
what is Herb Simon's, like, where does his money come from?
I feel like he has money in malls.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So he has a lot of money in malls, so it's like, I don't know, buddy. Like, obviously, you're going to be taking a hit from the COVID. So, but everyone was talking about how broke he was, and so I'm wondering if it was like a little bit of reverse psychology to be like, well, I'm not owned. You know what I mean? Like, fucking,
he basically fired Nate McMillan and turned back into a corn cob.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because, I mean, okay, cool. Have fun with Mike D'Antoni and the roster you still have. Like, I just don't understand. Like, I like D'Antoni. D'Antoni's a great coach. And honestly, I know that for Oklahoma City, you want Oklahoma City to get in because that's your squad. You pick them early on before the
Thunder
playoffs
looking
started.
good.
They looked great. I mean, CP completely took that game over. But, like, I would love to see Houston Lakers. Like, that's just the complete contrasted styles that, like, is exactly what the playoffs are about.
You want to do the West vibe check then?
I think we should do the West vibe check. I mean, I don't know if we don't have any other East vibes to check.
I don't really have anything to say about, like, Orlando. We've already said everything we need to say about Philly. Like,
Yeah, shout out to their families.
Yeah, every team that got eliminated, shout out to their families.
Yes, 100%. So Lakers vibes, I think they're fine. I think they're neutral at this point. Like, LeBron's corniness is just going to be there no matter what, and I don't think that it's like kind of like a counterweight on a normal scale where you just like put that, like, the canister that you're weighing something in on there, and then you just delete it. Like, it's just part of what you're measuring, and you don't actually account for it because he's just going to be corny. Like, it's just like the whole voting thing and, like, you know, all this posturing about the plan. I just think it's just going to be what it is. I'm not going to be holding it against him.
I just want to say also, though, that did you remember from the various reports that the only Lakers player who didn't walk out of the meeting with LeBron
it was Dwight,
was
right?
Dwight Howard. Which just whether it's this meeting or the DJ pool party in the bubble, Dwight Howard is the only player there.
Dwight, you know what? I'm going to say this about Dwight.
Okay.
as an adult, it's okay to be by yourself at certain points. You know what I mean? Like, it's like going to the movie theater or going to a restaurant and you're just going to sit. I mean, obviously, when we would go into restaurants, I'm not going to restaurants anymore.
Well, Dwight might be going into restaurants now, though.
I mean, he was at the pool party and having cocktails, whatever the fucking the cocktail of the night was that they were giving out.
Not wearing a mask, probably.
Right, not wearing a mask. And also maybe, hey, I mean, it was probably one of the few nights off that they had. It was like maybe Dwight wanted to socialize. Yeah. Like, I'm sure Dwight probably wanted a new audience for his fart jokes.
Yeah, I don't know if that particular room would have been like that receptive to it. Although
maybe after the meeting has
like,
adjourned, Dwight fart time.
Dwight just rips one as they're walking out of this meeting where they've agreed to return to play. Although I will say that might go over better than the supposed Patrick Beverley Michelle Roberts interaction did.
Yeah, or what Stephen A. Smith said about LeBron on the conference call where he was like talking about the players that were beneath him.
Right, which I mean, LeBron 100% feels that way.
He definitely does.
Like, and that's his entire thing.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm not gonna. Stephen A. Smith knows shit, so like, I'm not like I'm not gonna doubt what he heard.
This is a pro Stephen A. Smith podcast.
We are a pro Stephen A. podcast, and we're a pro LeBron podcast as well. I'm just like, I'm gonna call him out on his bullshit, and that was one of those things.
So the Lakers vibes. I mean, the Lakers are getting playoff Rondo back supposedly.
Oh,
so
they're gonna need it. I think they're gonna have to start Kuz against the Rockets. Like, JaVale should not see JaVale probably doesn't see the floor, and Dwight maybe sees the floor for like 15 minutes a game.
Yeah,
I think Jared Dudley is gonna have an important series. Dude, he's not bad, dude. They're gonna have him playing center and like banging with PJ Tucker.
Okay,
like that's what he's gonna do. Like,
I think I might take Houston in this series.
I don't know, man. I mean,
we'll see what happens. I mean, if my
Houston has to make it first.
If my Thunder get in, my Thunder are making the finals. But
I mean, if your Thunder are making the finals, then my Celtics are winning the championship.
I mean, okay, you know what? Let's do it. Hell yeah, I'm down.
Yeah,
I mean, the ratings aren't going to be good, but like,
no, but the vibes will be great, and that's all that really matters. We're looking for the vibes championship. The Clippers, their vibes again. I feel like the LA team's vibes are neutral at this point. I don't feel like Kawhi's vibes are incredible, and I did like PG talking about and being honest about mental health.
Yeah,
and about being depressed and about being anxious, like that was cool.
Patrick Beverley going at Michelle Roberts kind of takes the vibes down a little bit.
Takes the vibes down. Marcus Morris pretending that he didn't hurt Luka on purpose twice, I think takes the vibes down, especially when it's like, we know what you're about, Marcus Morris. Like, just maybe like be like fuck Luka or some shit like that. Like instead of like being like, I would never. Yeah. It's like, we know who you are, Marcus. Like, come on.
Marcus Morris, as somebody also pointed out on Twitter, I forget who linked to this article, but he said that, I forget which opposing player it was, but he said earlier this year that some opposing player has female tendencies after like they got in a fight.
Right? Well, come on, bro.
Like Marcus Morris, like I'm not really going to be out here like caping for Marcus Morris's character. Like I'm not.
No. And so, like, the only guy that Marcus Morris liked which everyone likes, Boban. Like, you know, like that's just like, that's like a baseline thing. It's like, if you have a pulse, you like Boban.
Yeah,
it's not like a big deal. The Clippers vibes are fine. I think this actually goes really good though. I mean, we right into their opponent now in the semifinals, as we learned tonight. They're going to play the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
The Nuggets vibes have completely rebounded from the last time we talked, when they were getting run out of the gym, down 3-1. I'm interested for this. Obviously, they don't have the wings to handle the Clippers, and I think their guard defense is going to be a little suspect against Lou Will, but I do think that Jokic is going to give, like, Zubats was like a world beater against the Mavericks, And I just don't think he's going to look that good against Jokic.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I still think I would say Clippers in 5 probably in this series.
I'll give the Nuggets 2. I think it'll go 6. I mean, I still have the Clippers. I think that I think PG has centered himself. I think Kawhi is maybe the best player in the playoffs. I mean he's right. Him and Jason Tatum and LeBron and Anthony Davis are like all right there to me right now. And I mean the way that I do have a concern though with the way that Luka was able to get to his spots, that unless the Clippers. And the problem is, it's harder to sell out on Murray the way teams do on Dame when Jokic is the guy setting the screen. Because he's going to make a jumper or he's going to make like the perfect pass. And I do think the two-man game of Jokic and Murray is going to put them in some compromising positions. And I think the best way for the Clippers to go is, JaMychal Green at center and really try to speed up the game, because I don't know if Zubac is going to be able to have the success he had against Jokic that he did against the Mavericks. And Zubac was like a huge reason, in my opinion, why they were able to close the Mavericks out.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I think it's going to be competitive, but I expect the Clippers to win this pretty easily.
Okay.
So, Nuggets vibes are pretty good. They came back down 3-1. They're in a good spot. I mean, shout out to. I'm sure all of like the Nuggets bloggers are all like back in on Jokic after they completely turned on him after Game 3. But,
yeah.
But shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to them. Shout out to them actually. Them and Denver and Serbia are once again on good terms.
Yeah. Maybe Jokic now has forgiven the Cronkies for making him fly commercial.
I don't know about that one. I'm still ready to start a dialogue about that. Like that, like it was making your star player fly home after he tested positive for COVID, making him fly home commercial. Goes. Yeah, well, yeah. If it goes okay, here's the thing about the Nuggets. Getting Gary Harris back was major.
Yeah.
And they are not going to be like we saw them in this series, and I think also like we saw it against the Blazers last year. I thought they were going to be done against the Blazers last year when they lost that 4 overtime game. And they came back the next night and won in Portland with less than 2 days of rest. Like, they just hoop. Like, they just go out there and it doesn't matter what the score is. And I love Mike Malone. He's not afraid to try stuff. Like, the fact that he was willing to be like, we're going to start Monty Morris and Jamal Murray, and we're going to put Jeremy Grant in the starting lineup, which that made sense. But the Monty Morris thing to me was a surprise, and it all worked. It worked out. And I love the way that he coaches that team. I'm not going to say that I don't think the Clippers are going to have a walkover in the same way that no matter who it is, Oklahoma City or Houston, I don't think the Lakers are going to be walking to the conference finals either.
I think the person so far in the bubble that has gained the most in terms of reputation is Jamal Murray, because oh my God, he's been incredible.
Yeah. I mean, he's been amazing. I mean, 2 50-point games. On top of the amazing plays, he obviously was, he was carrying a lot of emotion. As a lot of, honestly, I feel like his emotions were indicative of the entire bubble. I feel like for a lot of guys, obviously the political unrest and the racial violence.
That interview
from the
he
police.
gave after Game 6 is one of the most memorable things of the bubble.
Oh, totally. And I think he was speaking for a lot of guys. In that moment. Obviously he was speaking for himself, and the performance that he put on and how much he gave, and when he squatted down in the tunnel on the way back to the bus, like he couldn't even walk, he couldn't even finish the walk.
Yeah.
And like that was not, I'm not trying to take away from that, but I do think that like that's indicative of what a lot of guys are going through. And yeah, I mean, and his play, obviously, I mean, the fact that he's able to go 50 and have those plays, I mean, it is like him and Jokic are just, they're cool together. Like they're just a good combo. And, I really like them. They both trust each other. Jokic with the big shot tonight. And Jokic also, like, I thought he talked about it tonight when they were interviewing him after the game, and he was like, I didn't bring it. He's like, he really is like, he's just like very honest and kind of deadpan and kind of unromantic about things.
He gives no fucks.
No, and I love it. And he's kind of like Kawhi in a way.
Serbian Kawhi, yeah, I can see it.
Like, it's just like, they're just kind of like, yeah, well, that was what happened, and that was that, Like, they're not out here trying to, like, be making, like, they're not trying to make a marketing campaign out of what they say post-game.
Right. So you want to do some shout-outs to some families?
I think we should. Should we go to Utah?
I don't really we're not. If anybody ever
we
tells
respect
us to
Mike Conley.
Mike Conley's cool. Donovan Mitchell had a great series, but if anybody ever tells us to respect the Jazz again, like we're never going to listen to him after this. You can't blowing a 3-1 lead. No, can't do it.
No, over. Especially in the first round. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Portland, shout out to their family. Shout out to Melo.
Shout out to Dame's literal family because he just announced that he's and his fiance are having twins.
Yeah, wow. The Lillard family keeps growing. Shout out to them. They are going to be running the Portland. What's the Interscholastic League, the PIL?
Yeah.
They're gonna be running that, or the Three Rivers League probably because they're gonna be in Westland or Lake Oswego or something like that.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Lillard family. Shout out to Carmelo Anthony basically saying, like, you better sign, like, I want to come back here, is, like, one of the best moments in Blazer history.
Now, will Neil Olshey step up and give him the money, or?
I mean, it's Neil Olshey, so I'm not going to guarantee it, but one would think that after complaining the way he has for 3 years about the Portland market not being attractive to prospective free agents, to get a player of Carmelo's stature saying that he wants to stay and telling him to walk would probably not. It wouldn't really fit with that narrative. So, if you want to keep playing that card, like, you better sign Carmelo. Like, I'm just
like what? But, like, the thing is, like, what is Neil gonna do if he can't play that card?
Quit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I mean, because there's the LaMarcus thing that everyone talks about, which it's like contractually, it's just not gonna happen. Like, they're not gonna trade Nurk to get LaMarcus back because LaMarcus is 35. Like, and he makes $24,000 a year. As good as he is,
does not make $24,000 a year.
Or $24 million, excuse me. $24 million.
24,000. That's like a G League salary. That's literally a G League salary.
That's literally the G League salary. $24 million, excuse me. And Nurk is making like $14 million.
Yeah.
And that's the contract that you would have to trade with a bunch of other ones just to get him. So, like, I just don't see them doing that, especially when it's not the same, but a lot of the stuff that LaMarcus would be doing is stuff that Melo has already been doing.
Yeah.
He's not as tall, but, like, offensively, he's getting the touches at the elbow. He's stretching out at the 3-point line better than LaMarcus would. And he's giving you a lot of things on that end that LaMarcus would be giving you anyway. I think defensively, LaMarcus obviously is a rim protector, and he's taller, has longer arms. That definitely is a factor. But offensively, I just don't, especially when you're paying Carmelo the vet minimum, I just don't see why you give up Nurk and co do a trade like that, as much as I think LaMarcus personally wants it.
Yeah, so shout out to the Blazers family. Shout out to the Dallas family. Shout out to Luka. Luka's awesome. Just generally
I'm so
speaking,
sad.
shout out to the Mavs.
I mean, shout out to Trey Burke.
Yeah.
I want to shout out Trey Burke. Like that, I had a lot of fun watching Trey Burke in that series. The fact that he was able to, he's been in and out of the league, back and forth. He was Rookie of the Year candidate. Then he got bounced out of the league. Then he was traded. Then he was on the Sixers, and then he got released.
On the Knicks for a minute.
Yeah, and then he ends up on the Mavs, and he was basically like Luka's number 2 for a lot of those games. And that was Seth Curry was a blast in that series as well. And yeah, shout out to the Mavs, shout out to their family, shout out to Rick Carlisle, who was also doing a lot of civil rights history.
Yeah, Rick Carlisle's cool.
Yeah, he's cool, and also I love the way that he talks about Luka. He's like, that's a bad motherfucker. Like the way he talks about Luka is so great. I love because he just knows that he's got something special. And second of all, I just wanted, but before we move on from the Mavericks, fuck the Luka legend bullshit. We're not calling him that. He's El Niño Maravilla, or he's Don Luka.
I like Don Luka.
Don Luka is great. The first time I heard that was Maria Taylor on ESPN Countdown, and shout out to Maria Taylor for bringing that to us.
She's just really good in general.
She's really good in general, but Don Luka is great. Like that's it. That or El Niño Maravilla came from Spain when he was playing at Real Madrid, and he was literally 17.
This is part of you trying to claim him as the Latinx diaspora still.
Yes,
I see your agenda. I'm not going to just let you blindly go along with that.
I mean, he does play Fortnite in Spanish language.
Okay. So that's the barometer for who you claim.
I'm claiming him right now.
Okay.
I mean, we're claiming Luka. It's happening. It's a thing.
Okay.
Well, I mean, when he went to Mexico and said "way," like that was huge.
Okay.
So,
but Erik, I would say on the other hand, he's white. Larry Bird is white. Therefore, Luka legend.
God damn it, dude! Like, also, the funniest thing is too, like I think we've talked about this before, but like you went up to Luka and like explained what the Great White Hope is, he'd be like, "That's lame as fuck."
I might do that at some point. Whenever we're allowed to like go to arenas again, I might try to do the Luka Doncic talks about race story.
Yeah, and how like white people try to project their hopes and dreams onto him.
I guarantee you, Luka has no interest in being compared to Larry Bird every single time.
No, he would rather be compared to LeBron or James Harden, who is like more of like an actual basketball comparison to what he does, or Steph.
It's like comparing every good white player. Like they compare Dirk to Larry Bird too. Like comparing
who's not at all like Dirk.
No, like, neither Luka. Like Larry Bird didn't have Luka's handle. Like
no.
Like,
and I don't and
comparing every good white player to Larry Bird is just like the laziest. Like that's just such a tell for like who's not really like about this.
No, and it's just it's just very tiring. And shout out to Luka.
Yeah,
he's a superstar. Like anytime, it's funny. Anytime I would listen to like, I think it was funny when we were at a bar like right before COVID hit with Nick Friedel. And remember, I went to the bar and I heard these guys talking about Luka and James Harden, and it was like that was the type of thing we were talking about. Like, damn, like what if people talking about like they're gonna start talking about it now? Like the fact that Luka had this moment in the postseason now, like people saw it, but I think it took this for people to really believe that he is that special.
Yeah.
And I think he's got the attention of everybody now. Like he to me should be getting the Zion, whatever the Zion dates were on national television for this year, should all be going to Luka.
Yeah, but the agenda will be a little bit too clear if that happens.
That's a good point. Then the agenda will be naked for all to see, and we can never go back.
The agenda is actually Luka's nickname. If Luka must have a nickname that isn't Don Luka, I think it's just the agenda.
I actually love the agenda. during the series when he won game 2, I said like Luka had 42 points for the hashtag agenda, and like I was starting to think to myself like, what if it's like the process, where it's like Embiid is the process,
yeah,
and Luka is the agenda. Like I feel like it's very similar.
Oh my god. So real quick before we go, we're running like a little over an hour here. We're probably gonna have to wrap it up soon, but. Unfortunately, we have to do some more shout-outs to some families of some people who unfortunately have passed away. We got to, I mean, it's starting out with here in Portland, and you did it. You on your Blazer Banter podcast, you had a nice little tribute to him too. But Cliff Robinson, Uncle Cliffy, one of the most beloved Blazers of that era, certainly one of my favorite players and one of your favorite players as a kid. Died at 53. Apparently, he had a battle with lymphoma that we didn't really know about. So that was a bummer to wake up and see that.
Yeah, dude, especially after the Chadwick Boseman shit.
Yeah, man.
I mean, you were the one I found out from you. I woke up to the text and I saw Cliff Robinson OMG, and like I looked online and I was like, oh my god, and like on top of the Chadwick Boseman shit, like that sent me, and I was like so sad, and like I literally cried when the Blazers came out on the court, everyone wearing a fucking headband in that game.
Yeah,
like it was so touching, and. Cliffy was also like
one of the coolest players of that era for sure.
Coolest players, and also one of the most productive players of that era. One of the most revolutionary players that we've ever seen.
He would be so good now as a stretch 4.
Yeah, he would be a stretch 4, stretch 5. Like, I mean, he could guard all 5 positions. He ran the floor. He stretched the floor. He defended the floor. Like he was good at everything. And he was also cool as hell. Like, he was just a guy that everyone wanted to be around. And I remember, my parents would tell me stories about being out at the clubs. Like, not the clubs, Portland. It's Portland. They would be at Huber's, which is like the place where you get Spanish coffees, which is like kind of like a place where you get litty late at night.
Okay.
But back in the 90s, like, that was a spot where the Blazers would go. And, like, my parents would be out there, and, like, Cliffy would come through, and Jerome would come through, and Terry Porter would come through, and it was, like, it was a whole spot. And, like, it would be, like, they would have times with them. And it's, like, that was also, I think, indicative of, like, the times that they were in, where it was, like, there's no phones, there's no social media. Like, people feel a little bit more comfortable with, like, being out in public like that at a spot like Huber's in the middle of downtown Portland. But it just speaks to what Cliff and I think Jerome Kersey also meant to this community. Like, the fact that they really not only made an impact here, but also they really loved spending their time here, it felt like. So it sucks to see Cliffy gone.
And
especially
also now, like, 3 out of the most important guys from those 90 and 92 Blazers teams with him and Jerome Kersey and Kevin Duckworth have all died now at really young ages. Like, Kevin Duckworth was like 44 when he died. Jerome Kersey was in his early 50s.
Yeah, and not even, I mean, he was the 90 team.
Yeah.
Or 90-91 team, but like Drazen Petrovic also died. And he was part of those, he was part of the 90 team that went to the finals, and
he didn't really play much on those teams. It was not until he got to New Jersey that he was really like on his way to becoming a star.
No, but when they did the NBA TV documentary about the Blazers, though, they did mention, Drazen passing, and the fact that like the 90 team like doesn't have one of their guys that was with them every single day in practice, and just like it's sad, and so. Yeah, shout out to Uncle Cliffy. I mean, he came back here to be kind of a businessman.
Uncle Spliffy, legend. Yeah, man. I mean, he was great, and he was also just like he was just really good. Like, he was just always good. Like that's like there's not a lot of guys that. And also, Casey Holdall from Blazers.com made this point the other day, is that like he played, like he was on the Blazers for like 5 years and didn't get off the bench until like 93, 94, and then he became an all-star, and then he still had like another
13 years after that.
Yeah, he played until like
really
07.
Good. Yeah, it was wild, the fact that he was in the league for that long.
I remember he's on this running list that I have of like the most random players to drop 50 points in a game. He had 50 in a random game when he was with Phoenix in like 99 or 2000.
That sounds right. Yeah. And a lot of guys, I mean, the thing is, when you're in the league for that long, you're going to be on a zillion different teams or face a bunch of guys from a bunch of different teams. And you really saw the outpouring about Cliffy from literally everybody who played in the NBA during those days. Like, it was like Scottie Pippen and Steve Nash and Vince Carter. And you just had guys up and down the last 30 years, basically, of NBA basketball that touched Cliff Robinson's career.
Yeah. So, shout out to his family. Shout out to John Thompson.
Yes. Legend. I loved listening to him when he would be on the tournament broadcast during the NCAAs, and also he was great on TNT. A lot of people don't remember, but he was an analyst for TNT, and he would also do interviews for them, and they would do like features with John Thompson and ex NBA player, and it was cool. Like he would get because he commanded a respect with literally everybody in the NBA that I don't think a single NBA coach has ever had.
Yeah, I mean, Pop. It's like
I don't know. I don't think Pop has ever come into the John Thompson gravitas. I'm just gonna say that.
Okay. I mean, he's obviously given like the guys that he coached. Patrick Ewing, Allen Iverson, Dikembe Mutombo. Who, by the way, like, how's this for weird timing? Do you listen to Knuckleheads? That's the Darius Miles, Quentin Richardson.
I haven't listened to it recently.
It's basically it's basically like the same thing as All the Smoke, except neither of them are anti-Semites that we know of. But they just had Dikembe Mutombo on this week. Mm-hmm. And I listened to this. It was like 3 days before John Thompson died, and they spent like half of the show just talking about how much respect like they all had for John Thompson and how they all would have liked to play for him, and how much Dikembe Mutombo's life was changed by playing for him, and it was just that's a fun listen.
I will listen to that. Yeah, I mean, John Thompson was like the gravitas that he had, also as like the most famous black basketball coach of all time. Like, he also just
first black coach ever to win a national championship.
Yeah, and he was like, he played on the Celtics, and he was teammates with Bill Russell, and like, and he was just he just had so much gravitas, so much impact, and he was an icon in basketball. And so even though he didn't coach in the NBA, people in the NBA had so much respect for him, and I thought it said a lot about him that even though he never coached in the NBA, once he retired from being a coach, he was like, TNT was like, hey man, like, come on, like, we're gonna need you because you're the man. Like, that says a lot to me. Like, that would never happen for Coach K. Like, Coach K would never be able to retire and be like, TNT's going to be like, we're going to bring you on, Coach K. Right. Like, I would never see that happening. And like, I just think John Thompson was a legend. Another college coach that passed away. Another shout out to their families. Lute, Olson, the Arizona teams. Arizona was in West Coast basketball, I think, what a lot of people look to, what, Connecticut was, or what Georgetown was, or what Syracuse was. Like, that was the pinnacle basketball program in the Western United States, I felt like, other than UCLA. There was John Wooden and UCLA, but I think second to UCLA was Arizona, and they had so many great teams. I remember their 97 team with Miles Simon and Mike Bibby. I remember, Channing Frye on their team. Salim Stoudemire was a hooper for them.
Prime Salim Stoudemire was a bucket. People forget that.
People do forget that Prime Salim Stoudemire was a bucket. Dude, honestly, one of the greatest games I've ever seen was Channing Frye and Salim Stoudemire's Arizona team against Darren Williams, Brian Cook, and
Illinois.
Yeah, the Illinois team, and D. Brown, the other D. Brown. And I mean, yeah. So Lute Olson was an icon as well. I mean, the fact that, you know, he was able to turn that team into such a program, and obviously it's a big state school, but I mean, they had so many guys, so many important guys come out of there that he coached, you know, for like 30 years or 40 years.
Yeah, my parents were at U of A when Sean Elliott and Steve Kerr, like my dad was doing his medical school residency in the mid 80s, and my mom was in grad school there. So back when like Sean Elliott and Steve Kerr were on the team, and this was like when Steve Kerr's father got killed. And we've heard Steve Kerr talk before about just how much Lute Olson helped him through that, and how he was like a second father figure to him after that whole situation. So it's just been a rough week for people. You know, between Chadwick Boseman and then these three basketball legends, like it's been a rough few days.
Yeah, and then on top of the fact that, you know, just the normal, just general racial violence that happens in the United States,
especially here in Portland, which it's gotten worse.
Yeah, and well, yeah, Jacob Blake was like 10 days ago, and obviously, yeah, the Portland situation where we have, you know, white nationalists doing a caravan through the city, sanctioned by police. It's really fucked, and so
our mayor has literally no interest in even doing anything to try to stop it.
It's extremely tight.
Yeah.
But I do think we did a pretty thorough vibe check of the teams. I mean, I mean, Houston, Oklahoma City, I feel like is subject to further vibes investigation. Just
I think that Houston has a lot more to lose in the vibes than Oklahoma, because like if Oklahoma City loses tomorrow, like they're fine. They're like they came into this whole season not even like expected to make the playoffs, so they're fine no matter what. Whereas if Houston loses, that's like that's kind of rough for them. Yeah,
OKC's playing with house money except for CP's pride. Is basically like the only thing that's not house money at this point. Like they're like, we're gonna, you know, Houston, they gave up 2 first-round picks to get Westbrook and trade CP3 away in the process. So
you see those gifs of CP like staring down Harden.
That amazing.
So
like oh my god, dude. CP is just so petty. Him and LeBron in a series together, we've never seen that before. And so, like, that alone would be pretty special to have basically big LeBron and little LeBron go against each other in a series, because they're basically the same player, except CP is 8 inches shorter.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a good place to leave it here. We'll be back later this week with a Patreon episode. Are we going to do another Skip Bayless wife's book reading this week?
Oh, I think we can. I think we should. I think we should do
People seem to like the last one.
An Ernestine Bayless Patreon special. I think it's in the cards.
Yeah, I think, you know, we decided it wouldn't be appropriate to do that last week after everything that happened, but you know, we're back to the playoff stuff's calmed down a little bit, so we're gonna do this. We're gonna do the Skip Bayless wife book reading again. If you haven't subscribed, you guys should go back and subscribe to the Patreon and listen to the most recent Patreon episode, which we read some of Skip Bayless's wife's book, which is just incredible stuff, and
highlighted her favorite NBA players,
her quote unquote her favorite and least favorite NBA players. This was definitely
hers.
Written by her and not written by her husband.
It was exactly.
But you know, it's patreon.com/BullsVBlazers. It's $3 a month. You get an extra episode per week, so go listen to that. Otherwise, you know, we're on Apple, Spotify, Google, everywhere else you can find podcasts. Subscribe, rate, review. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Highkin. Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at BullsVBlazers. Erik, tell everyone where they can check you out.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Blazer Banter, and you can also follow my Instagram at ErikG503. You can follow my Lakers writing as they move through the playoffs at LeBronWire.usatoday.com, and you can find my other NBA Blazers musings. Anything else that I feel like is not necessarily in the fit of LeBron Wire will be at blazerbanter.substack.com.
Cool. So we'll be back with you guys later this week with the Skip Bayless wife book reading. Thanks for listening.